Andretti dynasty continues as Michael's son starts his karting career. But for Michael today, disappointment here at Long Beach, as still Raul Boesel leads from Jimmy Vasser and Zanardi in third place. Riding on board now with Jimmy Vasser.
In second position, a little under 7 seconds behind the race leader. Slower car there in front of him. Closely gets to the wall there on the apex of the corner, also on the exit. Doing a nice job, Jimmy Vasser. But yeah, once again, Raul Boesel with clear track in front of him, lapping very comfortably in the 53-second range, and actually stretching his lead a little bit over the second place car of Jimmy Vasser and third place car of Alex Zanardi. So a case of what might have been, I think, for Raul Boesel. I don't think he's going to be in a chance to win this race. I'm sure he'll have to make another pit stop. And one has to say, a very curious piece of strategy, I would say, by that team.
Yes, but at the moment he's leading the race. We'll just have to see what happens. As there we see the positions. Mark Blundell down to 10th place now. Maurizio Gugelmin in 4th position and being chased by Gilles de Ferran. Gilles de Ferran, the early race leader here at Long Beach, but he lost the lead in the first round of pit stops to Alex Zanardi. Zanardi then leading the next part of the race, and then on the second round of pit stops, Zanardi gaining a bit more ground again on Gilles de Ferran, and in fact Gilles de Ferran losing out to Gugelmin. So it's been a bit of a tough afternoon with the pit stops for de Ferran. He's had the car with the pace on the track, but it doesn't seem to have worked quite so well in the pit lane. Meanwhile, Zanardi, there he is, having made his 2 pit stops, lies in 3rd place, but he's behind 2 cars that have only made 1 pit stop each, Raul Boesel and Jimmy Vasser. We wait to see when they come into the pits. We've got something like 28 laps to go of this 1.6-mile track. They're lapping in well under a minute, around about 54, 53 seconds per lap, so it doesn't take long for them to get around. We've got the 2 Penskes running in harmony, running in tandem, I should say, really. And that's Paul Tracy in 7th and Alonso Jr. in 8th place.
Started in 11th for Paul Tracy and 15th for Alonso Jr. So they've made good progress there, as we talked about a little bit earlier. Great strategy by Roger Penske there to bring those guys in early and get them out ahead of that train of cars. Parker Johnson, we just see them in the background, is in 9th place, and he'll be frustrated. Oh, there's Alonso Jr. getting the car sideways as he comes up toward the hairpin there. Paul Tracy running a little bit wide on the exit, so these guys are really trying, aren't they?
Yes, they were lapping quickly too. They're lapping at about the same pace as the race leaders, 53.6, 53.7. In fact, Alonso Jr.'s last lap of 53.4, and that's faster than any of the front runners. So it's interesting to see the Penske's working extremely well in race conditions now. If anything, it looks as though Al is a bit quicker than Paul, but I wonder whether Paul's going to be too keen to let Alonso Jr. pass.
I don't think so. He's under a lot of pressure really at the moment, Paul Tracy. He made a mistake perhaps in the last race, took himself out of contention for the lead in that incident with Alex Zanardi. He was kicking himself very hard indeed that evening. He knew he had a chance to win the race, and you know, maybe if the chance didn't come then when he was dicing with Alex Zanardi, maybe it would have come a little bit later. If he'd have been a little bit more prudent, perhaps he would have continued and perhaps he'd have had a cleaner shot to get into the lead. So there he is, very, very wide again on the exit. Quite interesting there.
Yes, he seems to hit the power earlier than Alonso, who carries a bit more speed in. You can see tyre marks in the front of Paul Tracy's car, where he's obviously been nosing up behind someone a little bit too closely, as we see the battle continuing between the 2 Penske cars. Back on board with Jimmy Vasser, and still in 2nd place. We wait to see when he's going to be coming into the pit. 79 laps completed now, and just looking further down the order, just keep you up to date with Parker Johnston, who's in 9th place, and Mark Blundell in 11th position. It's behind Brian Herter. Dario Franchitti still running. He's in 14th position, and lapping in the 55s at the moment. He's a lap down on the race leader. Had a bit of a tough afternoon so far.
No, he's not actually a lap down this stage. He's just he hasn't yet come past on this lap, so he hasn't yet completed this lap. But he is running pretty happily. He's having a good little dice there with PJ Jones. He finally got past the Toyota engine Reynard of Dangoni's team there. PJ Jones, who's now back to 15th place, Dario up to 14th. And it took him a few laps to get past, but finally he is through, and he is still on the lead lap.
And in the battle with the other rookie, the one from Canada, Patrick Carpentier, is still leading that because Franchitti 14th, Carpentier down in 17th position. Back on board with Jimmy Vasser. And it's interesting that Penske battle is certainly looking very, very good at the moment. As Alonso Jr. very close to back of Paul Tracy. On board with Gilles de Ferran, who's got Gugelmin not far ahead of him. And that looks like we've got a little train of cars all together there now. And I wonder whether de Ferran, the pole sitter, he's gone through a dramatic weekend so far with taking pole position on Friday in the first qualifying session. And then the nasty accident with Walter Salles on Saturday practice, sitting out the whole of the second qualifying session in a nerve-wracking display as he waited to see if anyone would go faster. In the end, Alex Zanardi tried, but just failed in the closing moments of the session. So de Ferran survived to take his pole position. Early part of the race has looked good for him. Paul Jasper, the young guy just out of Toyota Atlantic Series. And Gilles de Ferran lying in 5th place, not really looking as though he's putting much pressure on Maurizio Gugelmin for 4th position.
23 laps to go now, 82 in the books. There is the race leader, Raoul Boisel, a goodly lead there as we see over Jimmy Vasser. There is Alex Zanardi in 3rd place, then the laps car of Michel Jourdain Jr. There is Mauricio Gugelmin, Gilles de Ferran. They are running in 4th and 5th positions, and there's a gap back to Scott Pruitt who goes through. Long gap back to the 2 Penske cars of Tracy and Unser there with Parker Johnson right behind him as they try to get past Hiro Matsushita, who is sort of kind of paying attention there in turn 1. Walter Salles is next in their sights, and I'm sure Walter, with a lot more experience of top-level driving perhaps than Hiro, will get out of the way as soon as they get onto the back straightaway through this little sequence. I'm sure we'll see Walter let them go through under braking for turn 6.
Yes, quite a tussle here.
Meanwhile, we see Raoul Boisel into the pits here on lap 83. Here he comes.
So race leader into the pits, Raoul Boisel. That means Jimmy Vasser goes ahead now, and I wonder where Boisel's going to come out. Obviously, he's led as the pit stop strategies have paid off, but it's not going to see him leading when he comes back out. It's just a question of how far down. 12.4 seconds, not a bad stop, although he just had a little hiccup as he tried to get underway again there. And as he rejoins the race, he has to adhere to that pit lane speed limit. It is a tight pit lane here. We've seen some nasty accidents in the past, so it's very important that they keep to that pit lane speed limit. And we'll just try and spot, unfortunately we changed picture, we couldn't quite spot where he came out and with which cars, but we now wait for Jimmy Vasser to make his second stop as he leads this race by just 2 seconds from teammate Alex Zanardi.
Yeah, interesting. Scott Pruitt came in, his last pit stop before this one was on lap 40, so he's gone 43 laps since he made a pit stop. Jimmy Vasser came in on lap 50. That would, if on the same basis, that would take him through to lap 97 or so. So still 7 or 8 laps short of the finish. I don't think there's any way Jimmy Vasser can go the distance.
But if there was a yellow flag and we managed to get, if it was quite a long yellow flag, then of course that might make it possible. Depends on the fuel consumption on the Honda today and whether he could keep it there. And he'll be looking for a yellow flag to perhaps save his day and give him the opportunity to stay out there all the way through to the checkered flag. Gugelmin, de Ferran are running in 3rd and 4th places as Boisel has rejoined the track after his stop now and has come back out in 10th position. By those things, we'll have to check that as he comes around at the end of the next lap as well. That puts him just 1 ahead of Mark Blundell as the updates coming through on the timing and scoring. So there's Jimmy Vasser still leading from Alex Zanardi 2nd, Gugelmin in 3rd. De Ferran a little bit closer now in 4th place. So the 2 Brazilians beginning to do battle as we get towards the closing stages of this race. There you can see the gaps between the leaders. 84 laps, 21 laps to go here as the pressure continues amongst the top 4 positions. Great day so far for Chip Ganassi, and I guess this is how everybody expected the season to look at the beginning of the year, Jeremy, with these 2 dominating, but it really hasn't been this case up to now, has it?
No, they certainly haven't dominated. Alex Zanardi always been on the front row, and Jimmy Vasser never too far behind him, but they certainly haven't dominated in the way some people might have expected. But certainly a fabulous performance here. Just looking back farther down the field there, Mark Blundell finally has lost the position. Adrian Fernandez actually doing a nice job there for Team Tasman, Steve Horn's team, in the Takati Quaker State Lola Honda. They've been struggling with the Lolas badly this weekend, but a nice move there by Adrian Fernandez, taking him past Mark Blundell into 11th place.
That's a shame we didn't get to see that. Must have been a fairly brave move to get past Mark Blundell. We saw how Blundell was protecting his position earlier from Parker Johnston, but unfortunately we don't get to see that. But the Mexican has gone up into 11th, as you say, and Blundell down to, in fact, he's just dropped down further, down to 13th. I wonder if Mark's not in some sort of trouble there, because he's just dropped down the order a little bit more, and it may be that he's got some sort of difficulty with the Pac West Reynard Mercedes. Across the line to complete lap number 87 comes Jimmy Vasser. His lead over Alex Zanardi is 2.1 seconds, but can Vasser stay out there to the checkered flag? Will he have enough fuel to run it all the way? It's unlikely, but we'll just have to wait and see. He's up amongst some back markers in a moment. He's got one of the All-American racer cars just ahead of him. And Zanardi, perhaps given the opportunity to close up a little bit more. Still a 3-second gap back from Zanardi to Gugelmin. Gugelmin then with just about a second's advantage over Gilles de Ferran. And then Scott Pruitt up there still, Paul Tracy, as Jimmy Vasser makes the move quite safely. Behind Paul Tracy in 6th is Al Unser Jr. in 7th, Parker Johnston in 8th, Brian Herter is 9th, and Raul Boesel in 10th position.
Good battle here, back at just ahead of the race leader there between a couple of cars. There is Andre Ribeiro and PJ Jones there, but a good little dice along with Patrick Carponche. That's quite fun, but hopefully they'll stay out of the way of the race leaders. So
far so good, yes, as Vasser makes it through down to the end of the lap. Lapping at about 54.1 seconds the last lap, identical lap time really to Alex Zanardi, and that's not bad, dealing with some traffic as well. Very, very consistent run from these two cars so far.
Meanwhile, Mauricio Gugelmin turned to 53.4, as did Gilles de Ferran behind us, so they pulled in a good half a second on the two Target Chip Ganassi cars. That's kind of interesting.
Yes, but I think they had a clearer run probably. They didn't have quite the same amount of traffic perhaps as the two lead cars, and they'll maybe lose that time on the next lap. There you can see the leader, Vasser. We've had 4 different leaders so far.
Patrick Carponche ahead of him there. Patrick's been struggling all weekend, as indeed he was in Australia, and that's not going to make life easy for these two guys, is it? The next few laps are going to be quite interesting as they make their way through the slower traffic. There's Vasser down the inside, just showing Patrick Carponche, I think, that he's there. He wasn't really trying to make a pass, and hopefully he'll be able to get past on the back straightaway. That's the place he'd like to make the pass, and then get through cleanly into turn 6 and ready for the hairpin.
Yes, losing a bit of time, there's no doubt about it, behind the car of Carponche at the moment. Last lap from Vasser 54.2, whereas Zanardi's was a 53.7. A little bit different. It's given Zanardi the opportunity to close up the gap, and no, he doesn't go through at the end of the straight. Not quite quick enough. Carponche still running fairly rapidly in the Alimax car. So Vasser's finding that slightly hard work to get past, and we've got some more cars, as we mentioned, just ahead of them as well. So this is a tricky period in the race for Jimmy Vasser, and what it may do is give the likes of Mauricio Gugelmin and Gilles de Ferran an opportunity to close up that 4-second gap. Going past now, though, he gets past Carponche, one of the highest speed sections of the track, and now Vasser is through. Zanardi has the same job to do to try and get past the Canadian. In fact, Carponche moves right out of the way this time. Yes, he backed right off for Zanardi. So he made it slightly harder for Vasser for a lap or two, but saw Zanardi there and let him through immediately. Riding on board with Jimmy Vasser. And coming up behind the car of Michel Jourdain. As we look further down the order, just to check, Mark Blundell still running in 13th position. He didn't lose any further places, and Bobby Rahal has got past both Blundell and Adrian Fernandez to move up into 11th position. Things fairly settled at the moment as we go through into the latter part. 15 laps to go now. Stop, and Gilles de Ferran, who was running in 4th place, and in comes Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy was trying to make it through to the end on the fuel, but it's not good. They've had green flag running all the way, and maybe now they'll get a yellow, ironically, but it's too late for Jimmy Vasser, and he's got to make a quick stop. So where will they get him out? It's a very quick stop indeed. He didn't need too much fuel, just 8.4 seconds in the pits, but he's going to drop down the order as the other lead cars come past. He's dropping down as we speak, as Johnson goes past, Tracy goes past. There is the car of Gilles de Ferran, stopped at the side of the road, and oh dear, what a disappointing season he's having so far. A pace setter at several occasions, but it just doesn't seem to be coming together. We still don't know quite what happened to him there. Maybe we'll get another look in a moment. But Zanardi